Are we kind of back, MCU fans?
We are back, baby. We are back!
With the 2025 release schedule being a bit of a mixed bag, with some good, some disappointing, and some that are flat out unwatchable, Kevin Feige and the studio were banking on the Fantastic Four being both a standalone box office hit that would finally get the fan trust fully back on board and interconnect into the MCU mainline story to get the big picture in order. That's a lot of expectations heaped onto a movie that's trailers received pretty mixed reception online, and I particularly didn't care for, on top of the fact it stars an actor that, despite his talent, I can no longer stand since Hollywood has shoved him down our throats the last 5 years.
Come to AMC theaters, what movie you want to see? You want to see a Pedro Pascal movie? You want to see a Pedro Pascal movie? Or do you want to see a Pedro Pascal movie? Which Pedro Pascal movie do you want to see?
But to my surprise, the Fantastic Four First Steps is actually pretty good. Now, it's not even close to a masterpiece or even top-tier MCU like a lot of early reviews were suggesting, but like Thunderbolts, it's a return to the MCU feeling like real movies again.
Yes!
The biggest reasons why the Fantastic Four stands as one of the better entries into the MCU in recent memory is due in large part to the movie having a solid story, an actual style in its direction from Matt Shakman, and intriguing world building. We follow a completely different universe than the mainline MCU, with the Fantastic Four being the only superheroes on the planet and being well into their tenure as Earth's protectors. Having the movie set in a different universe benefits it massively because it allows the movie to focus on building out this cool new retro future aesthetic and focus on this version of the characters, while being able to avoid all of the convoluted current line MCU, bullshit we always deal with. While I do appreciate them skipping over the origin story, I could have used a bit more early on from the sequences in the ABC TV spot. We get 5 seconds for every villain of the week without much explanation of how they did it or what they were even thwarting, and it all just kind of felt a bit hollow. I liked what we got, I just wanted to see more from those moments, which is a big theme for the shortcomings of this movie, but we will get to that. I loved the family dynamic and how tight-knit of a unit they are. Their relationships felt genuine and made me believe that they would do anything for each other.
The relationships feel equally fleshed out among all members, adding a unique dynamic to the family that made for great banter. And not the typical MCU shit, like real people in the world interacting differently depending on who they are talking to.
I really have no complaints with Marvel's first family outside of Ben feeling pretty underutilized and pushed to the side.
How do you fuck that up?
All is well for the team until Shia LaBeouf shows up to herald the arrival of Galactus. With the team desperate to find a solution, they travel to Galactus to try and negotiate a peace offering, but when he demands their baby in exchange for the safety of their world,
the team must come together to defend their child and the planet from the imminent threat.
Everything they do with Galactus, they knocked it out of the park. They keep his motivations simple but effective, showing he is a force of nature looking to finally rest instead of some mustache-twirling villain. Yes, the baby was used as a bit of a plot device to some extent, but the wholesome lead-up and emotion around Franklin's birth more than justifies him in the story, especially after taking into account Galactus' motivations. I do have some issues with Shia LaBeouf here, unfortunately, though. I liked everything they did with her, there just wasn't enough of it. There needed to be another scene of her and Johnny to really sell their connection later, and she was almost entirely cut out of the third act. It feels like the story just kind of forgets about her until it's deemed convenient to the story.
Oh, well, isn't that convenient?
Shakman's direction has a distinct style that caters well to wrapping you up in the dialogue and the weight of the moment, which in turn constantly mounts the tension and leaves you unsure of what might happen next. He took a page out of Gareth Edwards' book here with the clever use of scale. Every shot perfectly captures the booming presence of Galactus through just his sheer fucking size alone and makes you feel just how insignificant we are in comparison. Not only does this add to the already imposing figure, but it also makes the audience keenly aware that this is a threat that we've never quite seen the likes of. Having such a strong ability to bring scope to his projects also greatly improves the action sequences overall. The camera moves with actual fluidity and has some really solid shots of the team showcasing the peak of their powers. There's an elongated chase through space in the middle of the movie that is peak MCU action.
So good.
I genuinely had no clue what was going to happen, especially after you think it's over, then the sequence ramps back up to another level. I also appreciate how it calls back to the classics of the genre like Star Trek and Interstellar, making it probably my favorite looking action sequence in the entirety of the franchise. Honestly, the entire movie looks incredible. I was so worried about Shia LaBeouf and Ben looking like abominations, but they are probably the most convincing CGI characters in the MCU besides Thanos. The entire third act's action slaps too, especially whenever Johnny or Sue do literally anything. Their powers are so busted, and it started getting me thinking about how many broken characters we now have. Sue, Sentry, Johnny, Thor, Adam Warlock, New Vision, Wanda, we know you're not dead, Doctor Strange, Hulk, whoever Harry Styles is supposed to be. Oh, and Emilia Clarke. How could I forget about that?
You serious?
I had a lot of worries about what the cast might do with these characters, and while some of my fears did end up becoming reality, they mostly did a fantastic job of combating them.
I understood that reference.
Pedro Pascal was obviously the biggest concern of mine going in, but I think he was actually one of my favorite parts of the movie.
No way! Inconceivable! I was not expecting that. But I was expecting not to expect something, so it doesn't count.
I have always seen Pedro as a good actor, but I always got the sense that he is kind of doing the same thing in every role, which I think is a big reason why people are fed up with seeing him in everything. But here, he has this stoic, collected demeanor that feels like every word he says to anyone is given more thought than I would have given my whole life. As if he has a million thoughts and scenarios rushing through his brain at all times, like an actual superhuman level genius would think and act. Pascal brings a real vulnerability to his relationship with Sue, in that he is the smartest man on the planet, but doesn't have the slightest idea of how to communicate or understand the most simple of things without overanalyzing it to death. You can also see a bit of this when he's coming up with a way to save the world from Galactus, as well as when he's preparing for the birth of their son. I thought it made his character very relatable and gave him that same compassion that I really liked in the new Superman movie. Vanessa Kirby was the other big-time standout of the team as Sue Storm. Her presence and motherly way with words really felt like the glue keeping everything and everyone together in this time of crisis. Whether it was the relationship with Paul Walter Hauser's character, which actually ends up playing a pivotal role in the third act, or her ability to captivate and capture the hearts and understandings of the community, or her stepping up as the emotional decision maker for the team, she makes you believe in Sue's innate sense of goodness, protection, and comfort. I always really bought into and cared about Reed and Sue's relationship in big part to their impeccable chemistry, even if it got a little too PDA for me in the press lead up to the movie.
It's my yummy old man.
These are gorgeous. I think that's my favorite image. So.
Person opposite me is a joy to work with.
It's the easiest one so far.
Watch out. Watch out.
If I was Vanessa Kirby's husband, I'd be asking some questions for sure. Of all the members of the Fantastic Four, my favorite of the bunch has always been Johnny Storm. I always thought he was the fucking man and had the coolest superpowers ever growing up. Plus, he was my go-to on Marvel Rivals. Joseph Quinn was probably my favorite casting choice going in too, but he had me nervous after watching the trailers. Luckily, he turned out to be everything I had hoped for from him in the role originally. Thank God. He brings some much-needed levity and light-hearted fun to the movie without coming off as a bumbling joke machine. Instead, he is actually the second smartest character in the movie behind Reed and comes up with multiple clever ways out of situations. Quinn perfectly balances the line between being funny, kind of a jerk, and endearing all at once. I loved his back and forth banter with Ben throughout the movie, even if I wasn't laughing out loud at any of it. Ben was the only member of the team I wasn't sold on, but I feel this is more an indictment of the story's inability to give him anything of meaning than it was on Ebon Moss-Baccarat. The whole half-assed girl next door storyline and making Ben into cooking because he's the guy from The Bear was not doing it for me. But I thought his voice matched the character well and was able to bring energy and life to a mostly CGI character through just his eyes alone. I also was concerned for Julia Gardner's Shia LaBeouf. No, not because she's a female Silver Surfer. Why would I care what gender a metallic Silver Herald alien thing is? But more so because I thought the effect looked like shit in the trailers and the voice Garner was using seemed monotone.
There is nothing you can do to stop him.
Her voice is still a bit devoid of life in the final cut, but it fits her character far better in the movie than it did for building up anticipation in the trailer. It makes her feel like someone who has lost their way and become detached from their past self,
standing by and turning into the exact thing she desperately saved her planet from. There's a scene towards the end of the second act between her and Johnny that was one of the better moments in the movie, and it really showed Garner's incredible range. Ralph Ineson is Galactus. The sheer weight of his booming voice and the expert way he was shot was the first time I've felt the magnitude of a villain in the MCU since Thanos. You fully understand that Galactus is a being beyond our understanding of space and time that feels like he's above us in some aspect through Ineson's presence in the role.
Oh yeah, and the score.
Holy fuck, the score is so good here. Just listen to this shit. Michael Giacchino continues to show why he is one of, if not, my favorite composers working currently. Every score he composes, particularly for blockbusters, fucking slaps, and this one is no different, evoking a sense of futuristic nostalgia that fits the movie perfectly, or could go alongside a Saturday morning cartoon of the team. He made every key emotional moment really hit like a ton of bricks and had me on the edge of my seat during the action, particularly in this masterfully crafted chase through space. Him and Hans Zimmer should trade off being the permanent composer for any spectacle filmmaking from here on out.
And I gotta tell you, it was perfect. Perfect.
I only had a few major issues with the Fantastic Four, with the biggest being the fact that we didn't get enough of it. I mostly liked everything the movie brings to the table, but I just needed more.
We were on the verge of greatness. We were this close.
Shia LaBeouf needed another 5 to 10 minutes added to make her character arc feel fully earned. Reed barely gets to use his stretchy powers. Ben doesn't do much at all. And the world's reaction to Galactus could have been fleshed out to feel like a martial law panic instead of a small, extremely calm group of protesters that are convinced by one simple speech. The most frustrating part about this is the fact that the editing makes it super obvious what scenes were trimmed. Multiple different times the movie cuts to a completely different scene in what feels like the midst of the scene you're currently watching, and it just becomes jarring as fuck once you notice it.
You did this for what?
Why not?
Why?
Why not?
Why though?
As soon as I would get invested into a crucial moment, like with Johnny and Shia LaBeouf, they'd abruptly move on. It's baffling because the scenes were good, but seemed like they lacked confidence in the movie, and cut it to be as safe and digestible as possible. But then sometimes they'd let the moments play out, so I'd have no clue what they were doing here. I think having an extra 15 minutes devoted to those areas and trimming off a couple of minutes of the baby buildup would have made for a much stronger cut of the movie that improves upon those few areas of need. It's spectacular world building, actual directing style on display, a great score, characters you grow to care about, some of the best performances in the MCU, and an earnest plot that packs a whole lot of heart through its family dynamic is more than enough to give a recommendation to go see the Fantastic Four in theaters. I want to stay around for the first post-credit scene if you're curious where the Avengers will be heading here in the future. So for now, I'm going to give the Fantastic Four First Steps a very solid 7.5 out of 10.